Steve talking about his biography, part one,
Biography.
while driving like crazy through the Burren. Okay, Steve.
So you're asking me about my
Ancestors, yes?
Yeah. So I'm a product of 4 different nationalities,
Yeah.
all coming together in California.
So you're born Californian.
Yeah. So my mother's side are Italian
Yeah.
and Spanish.
Okay.
My grandmother was a Sicilian
Okay.
lady, and my grandfather was a Spanish.
Okay.
And that was my mom. And my father is Russian.
Okay.
Dominic were Russian. So
Yeah.
my grandmother was Russian. She actually fled the
Revolution.
in
Okay.
1917 as a
Okay.
as a teenager.
Yeah.
She was born in 1900,
Okay.
and she lived to be about 99.
Wow.
Yeah. And had all of her teeth when
Wow.
she died. She was very proud of that. So, yeah. So what happened there was my Italian and Spanish side of the family, they
Yeah.
immigrated to East Coast of America
Okay.
in the 30s because there was a very bad depression in Europe
Yeah.
as well. And they settled in the East Coast. And then my grandfather came out to Los Angeles to look for work,
Yeah.
found work, and then
So took the family.
took the family over, yeah.
Okay.
And they're in the restaurant business.
Okay.
And my mom had 2 brothers,
Yeah.
and they all worked in the restaurant business. And
So you come from an entrepreneurial spirit family.
yeah, wandering spirit too. And my grandmother from
Yeah.
Russia actually met my grandfather in Harbin, China.
Ah.
So my father was born in China.
Yeah. Wow.
So what happened was the Russians, when they fled the communism, they went to China.
Okay. Yeah.
And it turns out that Harbin
Yeah.
in northern Manchuria
Yeah.
was I don't know what you would call it, a haven or a colony of Russians.
Okay. Yeah.
Of
Yeah.
Russian, displaced Russians.
Yeah. Diaspora.
So, and my grandfather was an orphan.
Okay.
So we don't really know where he came from. He was a transatlantic orphan.
Okay.
So he arrived in America and was raised from a ship and was raised in the orphanage.
Yeah.
And we're not sure if he's English or French.
Okay.
When my father's side of the family left China,
Yep.
they took the boat over to San Francisco, and that was their place where they landed. They lived for a while in San Francisco, and they didn't like the climate. It was too cold and windy, so they moved south to Los Angeles. And so that's how my mom and dad met in Los Angeles.
Good.
So here I am now. I met an Irish lady, and we're living in Ireland, and our son was born and raised here in Ireland. And he wants to go to California.
Ah. Okay.
He's wondering why we live here. Sometimes I wonder when you have a summer day like this.
Yeah. With rain. What is it you like about living here in the Burren?
Oh, just the nature.
Yeah.
The low population, very basic.
The low population density.
Yeah, it's very simple. And yeah, there's no rules or regulations or
Yeah.
people to worry about.
How did you become a teacher?
Well, I became
Or self-employed? Well, you teach at some schools now. You told me in Ireland.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you give afternoon lessons for mathematics and coding instructions.
Well, yeah. So I didn't know. I wish I would have known this 20 years earlier. I would have had a career. I would have had a career in teaching.
You had no idea?
No, I had no idea. I should have been looking at the clues.
So what was your first job that you really did?
But what it was is, I went into the software industry.
Yeah.
And I'm a very good technical writer.
Yeah.
Documenter.
Yeah.
And that's a rare skill, or not a rare skill, but it's some programmers can't do that.
Yeah.
Can't break the barrier between technical and human language, English. And I found that was no problem for me. In fact, I was very good in school.
Yeah.
In my English classes, I was the top of the class, and I was the guy where the teacher would always read his essays about things. And I decided to take math in school because it was easy. Because the problem with writing was the teacher would either agree or disagree with you, and you pour your heart out writing, and it might not sit well with the teacher. It would be subjective. And math was very clear cut. There was a right answer. You do the dance, and you receive your little reward, and you pass your test. You get your grade. So I thought, this writing, man, it's too heartbreaking, right? So I'm just going to do something simple like math, and just everything works out nicely. There's a right answer. Anyway, that has changed now. That was back when I was 18 years old. Math is actually quite creative.
Yeah.
Okay? It's problem solving wise. Anyway, back to the teaching. So I'm able to explain technical things in human language, and that also came. I think that came from the fact that I grew up doing physical work. I serve, and I built buildings. I grew up on a horse ranch, and had to build fences and fix cars and tractors and all that. And I think that I'm able to take abstract technical concepts and apply them in ways that people can get their hands on and visualize. Okay, make sure we don't hit any cars.
How did you learn to code yourself?
Oh yeah, so I was a meteorologist. So being a surfer, I wanted to study meteorology, and in doing so, it turned out I had to do calculus and physics, which at the time I didn't think that was a great idea, but as you know, it's very useful for meteorology. So I got into it, and like I said, it wasn't so bad because you could always find the technique and get the answer, and I just did that. And then we got brought into the computer lab to start modeling weather phenomena and dealing with large sets of data, more than we could do, by hand, manually. And so as I started to code up the algorithms to produce the models and deal with the data, it just hit me. I thought, wow, these computers are very useful.
So you come to computing by working for weather?
Yeah.
Processing weather data?
Yeah. Coding mathematical algorithms.
Yeah.
Right? So I thought, wow. So I forgot all about meteorology, especially since it had to do with a lot of government agencies, which didn't sit well with me at the time. I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I thought computers were the way to do it. There was just no end to what they could do.
Yeah.
So I went and I studied computer science.
Yeah.
Okay. So then I found out that in computer science, you had to take a lot of math classes. But these were very interesting math classes. There were group theory, graph theory, linear algebra, and so I did all that, and I found that thinking in those terms really helped my computer programming. I suppose that's why they make you take those courses. And the other thing that happened was the math was actually quite interesting and quite creative. And I realized up until then, all I was doing was calculus. All I was doing was what I was saying earlier, was just performing a little trick and getting the right answer.
Yeah.
And actually mathematics is a lot more than that. There's patterns in the world, and there's ways of seeing nature and seeing patterns and coming up with very complex algorithms. It became fascinating. And what I try to do with kids now is to instill that aspect of mathematics in them. It's not just a bunch of work. It's not just a problem sheet that you have to do. It's actually, it's the language of nature. It's the language of creation. It supersedes all human languages, right? It's all common to everybody and everything in the universe. But anyway, enough of that. So
you noticed at this time that you already helped other students to understand math better, or not yet?
Oh yeah. I've had very good results with that.
Okay.
But still, now I'm still back in the computer science days. So then I was started to think, hey, wait a minute. This math is really good for your brain.
Yeah.
It really allows me to, really helps me formulate problems. And that computer science is really just an instance of mathematical thinking.
Yeah.
Just like all the sciences are, right?
Yeah.
Computer science is no different. And so I became fascinated with the algorithm and the process and the problem solvings and the patterns. And I specialized in math. And so by the time I left the university, I got a math degree, majored in math, and had a computer science, a minor in computer science. And so that worked out pretty good. I happened to just take all the classes that I thought I needed, and I got my qualification. And then I started working in robotics. And what I was doing was image processing. So I was, you could call it scientific programming. I was running math algorithms on the computer in order for cameras to make sense of their world. Camera on a robotic device. And so you enter the numerical domain to find edges and features in images. So I was well suited for that job right out of college. That was my first job out of college, coding up math algorithms. And then it just grew from there. Then I got into hardware. And I got into most aspects of computing. The other thing was I was in Silicon Valley. Actually, in Santa Cruz. Silicon Valley is just over the hill. So I would take interesting jobs. A lot of them were for the government. The government was funding a lot of interesting proof of concept projects, and I happened to hook up with a man who had all these connections. He was an ex-NASA alumni, so he had a lot of connections. So we were going along, and some of the projects worked, and we got more funding, and we continued, and a lot of them didn't work, and that was the end of it. And I just thought that was normal until I left Ireland. Sorry, I left California for Ireland and went to work in a big corporation. And I thought, oh, wait a minute here.
You don't like that?
I'm in a factory, I'm in an 18th century industrial revolution factory. The boss is sitting there and all the workers are sitting there. And the boss is keeping an eye on us. And we all have to, come to the factory at the same time and leave at the same time.
Just